honesty, opportunity, performance, empowerment. Be a part of the movement for a brighter and more transparent future.
The preceding was a paid political announcement.
Have a content capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I know we have no snow, but Christmas is still here. Ho ho, the Christmas shows each week for all to see. Movie classics wait for you and our local content for free. Have a content capital Christmas, and in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a content capital Christmas this year.
WESN.
Good day, folks. Welcome to Talk About here on WSN, your content capital show. Michael Small here once again to close out the week with you, our valued viewers here on WSN television with a difference. Not just because we're in HD. Now, a couple of things to get through this morning. Not necessarily anything to opine about per se, but things that I thought important to bring up, to highlight to some degree. And it's questionable, you know, when you have certain topics, should they be highlighted? Should negative news get the attention that it gets? Is it important enough? Is it just being done to attack somebody, to be cruel, to say, hey, look, this, blah, 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 blah. But the flip side is, to what extent now do we have a responsibility to always try to keep things in the proper context? Truth is the truth, whether we like it or not. It could be as inconvenient to us as we might want it to be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we get to ignore it. So, with that said, what am I speaking about? Well, let's kick off today's daily review. And the first story I just wanted to highlight per se is the fact that Watson Duke, the political leader of the PDP, he has been committed to stand trial on a 2016 rape charge and charges of indecent assault. It's not the only high-profile-ish sexual assault matter that came out in the news this morning, but because he's a public figure, to the degree that he is, I thought it was still necessary to point it out. There's also the caveat that, of course, they had the whole controversial episode between him and the former deputy political leader in Trinidad of the PDP. And I believe she was working with him even before, when he was just with the PSA. And all of the drama that came out of their back and forth on social media. Now the question is, to what extent will the public and should the public sort of take the various situations and kind of lump it together and try to analyze Mr. Duke? Well, at the end of the day, for better or worse, I always say the standard is innocent until proven guilty. And we could suspect Mr. Duke all that we want with regards to criminal charges on whether or not he's innocent or guilty. But to some extent, it would be wrong to treat him as though he was guilty before that was proven in a court of law. We might not like the man, but generally speaking, we might not like him for a whole host of reasons. But there's a certain degree of, I guess you could say, basic human respect that everyone deserves, no matter how unlikable. However, while, you know, we should not judge him and punish him for something that has yet to be proven to be true, at least in a court of law. Courts don't necessarily prove things to be true or not true factually. They just, it's reasonableness, right? On a lesser level, it does make me question the individual's personality and character and wonder to what extent his political career will be able to continue to move forward. Not because of this. This is just, I don't even want to say the nail that puts the nail in the coffin or the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because to be honest, I do think that for the most part, that train should have started rolling really by the time his adultery more or less came out by his own admission. And the details of it and how just all, I don't want to say crazy, because it's not like I'm trying to say that he is literally clinically insane, but the whole situation was just kind of crazy, right? You know, in the loose sense of the word, in common usage, you know, when something is crazy, when it's just, you know, it's kind of unbelievable. Like, how could this happen? Like, why would you do this? It makes no sense. Why would you quite like this? He's not the first person to cheat on his spouse. He's the first person to use the argument that by ending the affair is proof that he loves his wife, and to do so publicly. So, you know what? That's his personal life. But he brought her into the PDP as a deputy political leader. She was a public spokesperson for, at the time, the up-and-coming party in politics, and she was going to be part of the Trinidad arm. And to be fair, I think a lot of political analysts and operators were curious to see what would have come out of the PDP when it expanded to Trinidad. And if it could do something to kind of shake up the political landscape of, you know, national elections. Now, of course, we know that that's no longer on the table. That's almost completely impossible. I say almost because you never know what could happen. But that's the character of the man that we know of. Of course, the whole situation had led to the divorce of the TPP from the PDP. That also, at least based on the details that I have available to me, seems to be mostly on Mr. Duke, if not completely. So again, I do have to wonder, I mean, this should not necessarily be the nail, but it is one more thing that just makes him look negative, because I could see where his actions might not necessarily have been criminal. That doesn't necessarily mean that he conducted himself in a nice or professional manner. We don't know. Maybe more details will come out in the trial. Maybe this is all false allegations or trumped up charges. That's one of the other things that we have to be wary about. At the end of the day, no matter how unlikable the subject is, given the state of our political environments, you have to now ask, to what extent is he being targeted because of his popularity? I mean, I think you could guess, if I'm going to be biased in this situation, it won't be for Mr. Duke. But I still, for the sake of objectivity, have to ask that question. Because independence in TNT is right next to, on the same shelf as transparency and accountability. And objectivity is right next to that. So there are a lot of questions with regards to our systems, including our criminal justice system. It's hard not to potentially now speculate or have concerns or worries, right? There's no hard evidence of anything, So, you know, we can't prove anything. We can't make definitive statements on anything. And again, could just be speculation, could just be hot air, could just be my brain working overtime, concerned about something that isn't there. But we are set up to think this way given many of the results we see from various aspects of our government. And I don't just mean the side that's elected or even the minority side, but at all levels, up and down. At the end of the day, we know. We know and we know that we know, but we want to act like we don't know. All right, moving on to the next story. And this one I find, well, I'm not too sure how to take it, to be honest. The president of the Police Social Welfare Association, ASP Gideon Dixon, he is looking to sue the Police Service Commission and the states over being deemed ineligible for promotion. His issue is the fact that certain criteria was given with regards to having a master's degree, which institutions will they recognize, what type of degree, and to some extent, it's not very, very specific, as in only masters in this field, and this field, and everything else is not considered. No, there is some flexibility, you know, depending on how applicable your masters might be with regards to senior leadership. So Mr. Gideon apparently picked an institution on the list, and he picked a master's degree that had to do with strategic management and leadership and stuff like that. And then he was told, I believe by the Service Commission, that no, his master's, he does not qualify, and I believe it is on the basis of his master's. And, well, that his degree is not relevant. And he finds that is unfair, and he's looking to sue about it. Now, he's looking to sue basically apparently to compel the commission to consider him, which I guess is more or less the best you could hope for, right? I mean, if he wanted to try to compel them to promote him, that would be a different story. That's a non-starter, in my opinion. But to say that, okay, he just wants to be considered, that's fine, right? Now, I'll be honest, at the end of the day, an argument could be made to question even the legitimacy of the master's degrees as the criteria being so important when we're not really seeing the benefits of all of the education that we have given to our population, right? Think about it. So much more of our people are more educated, right? One of the things that was spoken about in the early part of the show is that we need better recruits, candidates, more educated police officers, blah, 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 blah. Well, come to find out that police officers are quite well educated. Our politicians are quite well educated, right? To their masters and their doctorates, etc., 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 etc. Note, now a lot of it could be in jest or sarcasm, but note well that some of our esteemed politicians with all of the qualifications to go behind the name, people will lament on how stupid it is. But at the end of the day, I think the Police Service Commission has more or less been set up to fail because they don't look independent. Whether they are or not, it's hard to assess from the outside looking in, and it's hard for them to prove it, but they don't look independent. And here comes basically the police union leader, who did have now to be fair, I don't think he's had a bad working relationship with the TTPS. He had a reasonable one with Guy Griffith, but it's not as though he, in my opinion, carried that bias when he was removed and a new commissioner was installed. No, he continued working with the TPS in the same manner, generally speaking. I believe, maybe I'm wrong, someone could point it out, I could be totally wrong, but that's my perception of him. So I don't necessarily understand what the issue is unless his position is too independent for the government. Or if there's something about him that the Service Commission did not like. But it seems as though the Service Commission, it seems that the Service Commission did something here similar to like what the Prime Minister did over Gary Griffith being Commissioner. Use better means. Don't potentially kind of circumvent the rules per se. Because, I mean, now maybe there's more technical details and there's things that ASP Gideon Dixon is not including. And if that is true, then he would be foolish to do so. So generally speaking, I assume that when someone gives us their story, they're not necessarily telling us the truth, but they're not going to do either outright lies or outright lies of omission. But, I mean, this is TNT, right? Right. So, they're bungling it. That's what it seems like on the surface, based on his side of it, his side. And I do wonder what is the point. And I'll have to laugh if it basically just comes full circle and then they'll have to consider him the next time there's the posting for Deputy Commissioner of Police or what have you. Because that's basically what happened to the Prime Minister. They had to do another merit list and they had to include Guy Griffith on it. And then they did what they could do legally to prevent him from being Commissioner of Police at that point in time. This is not hard, right? So, I don't know what to make of the Police Service Commission based on this. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out if Mr. Dixon continues his legal course of action. All right, a couple more stories. I won't necessarily get into the Guyana situation. Just note that the whole situation there, the US is now paying more attention, the UK is now paying more attention. Brazil, apparently troops Brazil deployed troops on their border to Venezuela. I guess they have concerns over the situation and tensions escalating. The helicopter that went down, apparently it went down due to bad weather. That's an unfortunate accident. Yes, those coincidences can happen. At the end of the day, when tensions are escalated, what can happen is operators, either they might take greater risks or they might push the envelope or a whole host of other things could just snowball. Military equipment and things like flight operations, even in a civilian setting, is complex and dangerous at the best of times. But I want to move on to the fourth story to wrap up this segment quick. And I mean, what can you say? Another Hindu temple was robbed. It was robbed of, I believe, cash. It was robbed of jewelry. And there's something that the MP Dinesh Rambali pointed out, which I think it's very unfortunate. It's an unfortunate realization and something that needs to be fully understood and digested by TNT. He said, we cannot pay for security, and even if we hire a watchman, his life could also be in danger. And I think to some extent, people, the irony is it slightly goes against the whole idea of stand your ground, right? Because stand your ground is we defend ourselves. Well, who defends our religious sites? Well, we get security. But at some point, people who are relying on private security for their protection, at some point, I think that house of cards is going to crack, because how many security guards are paid enough to actually intervene in a potential violent conflict? It's one thing if you have a belligerent customer who is treating your employees bad and other customers bad, and you call security to escort them off your premises. That's fine. Or you have security to just do crowd control if somebody is making a fuss, if you have protesters, if you have vandals, if you have kids trying to rob your store of bobbies or mints or whatever, right? But when we talk about violent confrontation, and it seems as though robbery now, we can't assume, well, it's just robbers and they don't want violence. We used to potentially be able to do that in the past, but now I think it's safe to say It's not whether or not that they're willing to have violence, it's whether or not they will deem it necessary to be violent. Because they'll have the capacity, and they probably will be more than willing, given the state of our climate with crime right now. And I find it very, very unfortunate, but it's also, I think, a warning. If you didn't think about this before, you start thinking about it now. At what point is private security really not going to be an obstacle? Because if they're willing to shoot at a deputy commissioner of police, and if they are willing to spray down a vehicle carrying cash from Pennywise, what is your private security going to do? Whether it's your gated community, whether it is your business, whether it is your religious site, there's limits on what it could do. And there are limits on what it could protect you or the property from. And if you really want somebody that's willing to throw down when confrontation happens, it probably should cost an arm and a leg. And who could afford that? And then, last story, just wanted to bring this up because it's kind of disappointing. And it's kind of funny. This is the one thing, I don't know why, but I feel especially disappointed every time I hear something like this. Although I should understand that at the end of the day, no media channel, no show, no podcast, no piece of news is going to be universal. Although I would expect that this advice would have gone through from media ambassadors through multiple channels, but even then, some people, they don't engage in media at all, at least local. And what am I talking about? Basically, a croupier man was looking to sell his car, I believe on an app, and he went and met the buyers. They went on a test drive, pulled a gun on him, robbed him of his car, 2 cell phones, his wallet, well, his ID cards, so his driver's permit, well, and bank cards, etc., etc. Took the wallet wholesale, didn't even leave him with his credentials. I don't know why, but oh well. There ought to be a law against that, by the way, to tack on to the robbery of money and bank cards and the car. And the point was, yeah, he met them on a road, Monroe Road, Savannah, Cunupia, 3 days ago in the evening, and they robbed him wholesale. And the ASP has been warning about that multiple times throughout this year, and I'm sure other media ambassadors have been also warning about it in other shows, on other stations, etc., etc. And I hope that it was in the newspapers and even on the radio. And it's just, okay, I get it. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. Just want to highlight it again. Please be mindful about selling things, meeting up with people to either buy or sell things, because it could work both ways. You could be robbed either way. You go to sell something, you could be robbed of the thing. You go to buy something, you could be robbed of your cash. If you know of family members or friends looking to engage in this activity, warn them about it. Tell them, listen, they have to go and try and conduct these things in front of a police station for whatever that's worth. Have some level of security, and having a knife with them or a gun with them, that's not necessarily a level of security. That is just creating the potential for the situation to escalate and to have a violent confrontation. So just wanted to highlight that. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have more to get through on this Friday. Stay tuned. This is Talking About NWS and your Content Capital. We'll be right back.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
It comes naturally to us. Unstoppable energy. We use it to manifest a future. A future where energy takes new forms and is used in new ways for all of us. The new age of energy is here.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Join us for the live broadcast on Saturday, December 9th as we kick off the much anticipated HOPE launch event, the ultimate celebration of transparent governance. Get ready to immerse yourself in the unveiling of our visionary roadmap for this great nation. Tune in from 2 p.m. to hear from the dedicated members of HOPE, spearheaded by the dynamic Timothy Hamill-Smith, as they share their commitment to serving the people and the country right here on WESN, Content Capital. Saturday, December 9th, 2023, this live broadcast and event starts at 2 p.m. and is coming to viewers from Paria Suites Conference Center, La Romaine. Join us in embracing the core values of hope, honesty, opportunity, performance, empowerment. Be a part of the movement for a brighter and more transparent future.
The preceding was a paid political announcement.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, it was so nice, we had to do it twice. What am I talking about? We have with me and you, my co-host, Mr. Keita Shah. Keita Shah, everybody.
What am I pointing at? Oh, you. Hey, Sean. Good to see you.
Apparently, it's good to see me. Yeah. One could not tell with that response.
Good morning, Sean Michael Small. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you, too. I mean, is it a happy Friday, all things considered?
Why not? Let's make it a happy Friday. What's good that's taking place in the news?
I mean, there's a lot of things in the news, and I don't know how. Most of it is not happy. Most of it is definitely not happy.
Okay.
How
do we create some happiness in TNT? It depends on how you look at things. For example, Rodney Charles has indicated that he will no longer be running for elections in 2025 or 2024, whatever year elections are called. They suspect it's 2024. He says he will be 76 in 2025, and this time has come for my generation to make way for younger politicians to assume the reins of leadership. Rodney Charles has openly stated this, but he was hinting at such earlier this year by various commentaries he was making. He says he's the oldest sitting MP in the lower house. This was the most interesting part. He says, I call on Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley as the second oldest to join me in ushering in a new era of politics. We must discard the notion that one has to leave TNT politics either in ignominy, blah, 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 or a casket. Yeah, a bit of a tongue twister there, but cool, no problem at all. He should also call on the opposition leader to follow suit.
I mean,
don't think he should.
She is 3 years younger.
Oh, wow.
Than Keith Rowley. So 4 years younger than himself, right? But, I mean, therein lies the question. At some point, will they be too old? And I do believe, or at least I hope, that this, even if both of them, either of them, you know, it could just be one, right, contest the next general election as political leader, it should be their last rodeo. I hope TNT is not ready to see a political leader at the age of, say, 82, or because by the time the next general election comes out, okay, Dr. Rowley will be about 75 or so, he'll be 80 at the end of that term. Kamala won't reach 80 yet, right? But at that point, that should be more or less the end, because they'll be pushing 80 or coming close to it after that.
On a more, look, the substantive topic really from this one article, this one highlight is, at what point is it suitable, or what is the most appropriate time for a politician to hang their coat up and say, you know what, I've done my part, it's time to let go and usher in a new generation of politicians. At what point does that become necessary?
Well, the other question is, should there even be like a blanket policy? Because sometimes when you have these hard and fast policies, you will run into situations that don't quite fit, where maybe there is no younger candidate, maybe the older candidate is legitimately both more capable as well as has the capacity to continue operating at a good level for a while. But the flip side to that is, yes, succession planning is an issue. A lot of businesses, especially family-owned sole trader businesses, right, who don't have to answer to any other ownership because they answer to themselves. It's their business, it's their asset. They don't necessarily always do well with succession planning, and you can't wait until the head is basically ready to walk out the door tomorrow to say, hey, let's start to prepare our successor now. No, you need to put time into preparing your successor, right? As well as, to some extent, fully understanding, you know, who the potential successor is, what their philosophies are. Because one of the other mistakes is you just want to pick somebody fast, but you want them, there's this almost disconnect where you expect them to be a younger version of you.
You have to understand, I'm not arguing with what you're saying. It's a valid point in regards to succession planning, and there are question marks surrounding whether or not the Prime Minister himself will run in the 2025 election, because he hinted at such following the results of the last election, stating that it will be his last term, or it's supposed to be his last term. But then the other aspect of it as well that you have to consider is whom in the People's National Movement is. There are those who want the leadership mantle, there are those who want to lead, and there are those who want to be Prime Minister, but whom is there that will be best suited to lead the People's National Movement? The second aspect of it is you don't need to have a hard and fast policy. It's not necessarily something that needs to be a policy. The United States, for example, we all know that their president is allowed 2 5-year terms. It's a similar thing in other countries as well, where you're only allowed 2 terms. But just remember, their political system is very much different to ours. It's just a matter of sometimes having to understand your role as a politician and the public support behind you as a politician. For example, Rodney Charles has served in this capacity. I believe this is his second term as MP for Naparima, because before he served as an ambassador to the United Nations. And there are other individuals within the party as well who have been there for quite some time. And the mindset is, as long as I'm getting the support, no matter how narrow the margin of victory may be, I'm going to stay in that position. The bigger point that we've focused on quite often enough is when is it the right time for the leader of the opposition party, the United National Congress, to really say, you know, this is it, you know, let's call it a day, because it's been successive election losses, and you can make the argument that, okay, we've gotten the popular vote. The popular vote has not put them in to office. So
right.
That is another something to consider as well. So I think overall, you know what, to Rodney Charles, I think it's quite it's a noble move on his part. The arguments are simply that I think it's time to hang up my boots because I'll be 76, and it's time to usher in a new generation of politicians. If you want to take it from that aspect, the aspect of which he's laid out to the public, great. I think that's admirable, and I think it's noble. The other aspect of it is the internal politics within the United National Congress. Is this a decision that he made on his own accord, or was there some hints that possibly he was probably being pushed out? You know, all those things you have to look at as well. So at the end of the day, the possibility exists already shown that the next representative of the United National Congress to challenge the Naparima seat has already been selected, right? That already, that possibility is already.
But have they been necessarily been officially, like the paperwork done, chosen, whatever? Because I do believe, as much as they made the announcement not too long ago, they don't necessarily expect people to start to file or whatever until, you know, closer to the deadline or whenever the election is actually declared, because, you know, we have about a year.
Just remember, elections are to be called 3 months before the actual election date, right? Mm-hmm. That is supposed to be the case. You're supposed to call it 3 months beforehand, which, let's be honest with you, is not a lot of time. So parties have to prepare themselves in advance, and the United National Congress has now taken the opportunity to do exactly that. So you would probably be seeing, Rodney Charles is probably the first, you may actually be seeing more members of Parliament from the opposition bench who will be hanging up their boots. I don't know. Whether or not nomination papers have been filed as yet, no, official nomination papers with the Election and Boundaries Commission, that hasn't been filed as yet, that hasn't even opened. But within the United National Congress, they have opened their nominations already. So they're probably going through the process. But I'm pretty certain the party already knows who they want to put up in what seat. I think this is just a formality.
Really? Because I found it was interesting, and I do believe that the NTA had to potentially cover the UNC in the last local election so that it didn't look like if they didn't have candidates for the PNM stronghold, so to say. Now, so I'm not entirely sold that the UNC was not taken by surprise by their own court victory to get the local government elections at the time that it did. It seems as though the PNM were somehow, despite probably not expecting to lose that case, more prepared than the UNC at the time, just the feel of the situation.
Because they're the government in power. They know their next move.
Well, right, but my point is they're not anticipating to lose the case. And it's not as though they call the elections early in the window that they had available. They called it late in the window. So it's like, how is it that the people who are not expecting this scenario, right, who are not actively fighting for this scenario, are better prepared to handle the scenario than you, who were actively trying to get this to happen?
You really think that the PNM were not expecting to in that case, or you believe that is what they put out in the public?
I mean, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. It's just that there's nothing to suggest that the PNM is a party that will actually have a plan B ready to go in case plan A fails.
Really, you think so?
I don't think they do.
Don't you get the... Don't you think that based off of what we've seen, generally speaking, in terms of a party that seems to be organized and prepared and even more united, that the People's National Movement always seems, at least the perception, bear that in mind, public perception is absolutely important. Now, we've heard that there's a lot of infighting within the People's National Movement. Mm-hmm. We've heard that there are 2 Balize houses being built. One is already completed, the other one is under construction, and that's a huge...
By competing interests.
Yes, by competing interests, and that's a huge internerve. We heard of all those things. So those rumors exist and circulating on the streets. But yet somehow or the other, they always seem prepared. And again, I go back to the point that, yes, they are the government. They always have They know first. They know what's coming beforehand, right? So bear that in mind. But yet still, they always seem to have some level of preparedness. Okay, put it this way. The arguments from the Opposition United National Congress in regards to, if we use the example of the local government election, they were preparing that lawsuit. They were fighting this since the very first time it came out that the government was extending the period.
Right.
And the terms of the existing councillors. They were already fighting that in Parliament. They knew they were going to go to the Privy Council with this. The individual, one of the lawyers on the case, one of the main lawyers on the case was Jayanti Lakshmi-Dayal, who's an opposition senator. So bear all that in mind as well. So this is possibly why the United National Congress is now preparing from earlier on, saying that we think elections are going to be called in 2024, so we're opening nominations from now.
All right, fine. Right, and that actually goes with what I'm saying, is that I think they learned from the last election period of what happened about not having enough time to prepare. And so they're doing it early now. That to me is what makes sense. That's the obvious. It might not be the truth.
No. And okay, fine. But then how do you explain in these circumstances, in this election that we're going to face in 2025? Because campaigning is going to start, if it hasn't started already, right? Because everyone is seeing how we're seeing in various parts of Trinidad major road pairing and major road repair works and paving exercises taking place.
Within a year, yeah.
Right? Now, just bear in mind, that could just simply be a government actually doing its job, but you could never tell given how the political sphere of TNT is.
No. The political philosophy is if I pave the roads right after the elections, within the next 5 years, it takes 5 years for the elections after to come, people forget that I paved the roads. So it seems as though we only pave the roads once every election cycle, as opposed to, I don't know, paving it every year.
But
somehow we seem to be allergic to that.
You have to pave a road.
Yearly maintenance.
If you have to pave a road every year, then I'd fire those engineers to begin with.
Well, I mean, we have the SCT and we have WASA, right? So,
but,
you know.
Explain to me then. It's funny how this conversation is going. We started speaking about ranchers, but then if that be the case, the NTA is now partnering with the United National Congress for the 2025 election. What's the explanation this time? It's not a matter of, okay, it seems as though
the alliance worked out.
We're going to fight an election against.
The alliance worked out. Guy Griffith is still perceived to be popular. I don't know if he has a slate with anything. And probably the NTA will fall on its sword contesting what would be PNM strongholds, whereas UNC will look to retain their seats. Right? That's the most likely scenario of what I'm seeing. Right? If Gary wants to be the sword and UNC be the shield, if he wants to, take the hit on the nose, right, as he runs into the brick wall, because in most of those cases, not all, it would be a brick wall. And of course, the NTA might have better appeal to marginal seats, marginal voters, etc., than the UNC.
I support viable options of other forces in TNT, other political party forces in TNT. I support that you have that, because if you have opposition to the government and opposition to the opposition, you understand that the thinking is not always going to be so microscopic as you would hear the arguments in Parliament. You might get a better viewpoint all around. And whilst I support that, at the same time, this goes against what Gary Griffith said when he established the NTA. They were not looking to, at that point, they were not looking to join any party or form any coalitions. In fact, I think when they established the NTA, that was one of the clearest messages. So it is possibly, again, if we're looking at all arguments, you made a good point, but is it also possibly to remain politically viable? Is this a matter of political survival?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, at the end of the day, because generally speaking, people tend to be very big and bold until reality hits them in the face, and then, at some point, is it being disingenuous, right, to kind of have to walk back on what you said when you made bold claims initially, or is it just, look, a wise man will understand that he can't always fight against the current, right? Now, I want to go back to what you said about the PNM being perceived to be well organized. My main thing against that is this. The situation with the Office of the Attorney General notwithstanding, that's a government cabinet situation, but listen, you're going to appoint a man who's going to have a conflict of interest or the jump and potentially perjure himself in a Miami court over a major state case on foreign soil, not even on local soil where you potentially have better control over it. But let's go to the actual local government elections itself. I understand that San Fernando apparently is far for most people in North. I didn't understand that it was far for people in South. Most people in South is not that far to make that drive. Now you have the local government election night. You are both the Minister of Local Government Elections and the Public Relations Officer of the party. You were recently minted as the Public Relations Officer of the party. And one of the first major national events that your party has to be a part of, that you are the line minister for, you are nowhere to be seen. Your predecessor basically has to do your job, and the Prime Minister has to do your job. You are nowhere to be seen. You're not even there as a background character. Now the question is, did he do it by choice, or was he told to stay away?
I get the impression that Laura Lazama Leasing is more of a public relations officer for the PNM than for Faris Sarawi. I'm not so sure what happened there. No, hold on, no?
I think Mr. Awali is very much enamored with the whole idea about public relations. Whether he could actually execute it or not is a whole different story.
Funny enough, I thought Faris Sarawi was the best option for public relations officer, given his personality and the confidence he exudes. I mean, you would have thought, okay, listen, he would have been the best option. Laura Lazama Leasing was there, and that's one individual. Now, I need you to understand, and I need the viewing public to understand, that what we're speaking about, or what I'm speaking about this morning is looking at the story of both political sides that currently exist within Parliament. Right? So this is not a matter of, whilst I'm saying that the People's National Movement as a party seems more organized, I'm not saying that their governance is effective, or their governance is even organized.
You realize the limitation of the statement. Just because they seem more organized than the UNC or other political parties doesn't mean they are well organized. Because if everybody is at a low figure and they're just at a low figure plus one, they are technically more organized, right? Everybody could be poor, they could be above poor. That doesn't mean that it's good. They could still be below average, right? However you want to define it. And I do find, no, I didn't just say he's the line minister, but he's also the public relations officer of the party. As in, he should have been there early, before the Prime Minister, before all of these other people. He should have been front and center. He should have been dealing with the media and the press. That's his job. He has the personality for the job, fine, but he is not a professional communicator, nor is he a professional political operator. So the fact that he has, in fact, it's even less...
Sean, you're focusing on one individual, and you have to bear in mind, and you're focusing on one individual, bear in mind that a title...
They put him there.
The title, but that's exactly the point.
The party
put him there. All right, okay, if you're focusing on one individual, fine, the party put him there. But the party didn't put him there in Balize House at night. So bear that in mind. So whatever the thinking may be...
If the party made that decision, I think that's not a good look for the party and for the party's strategic thinking. It seems as though they made a decision, and then in the long run they didn't realize what the consequences of that decision would be. Oh, we're going to put him in post. Oh, but this post actually matters, right? One of the better things coming out of the UNC is the work being done by its PRO. At times it might be relentless and redundant.
I think it's incredible the work that's being done by the PRO.
Right? But at the end of the day, he's doing so much for a party in opposition as opposed to what the PRO of the PNM is left to do, in part because can't speak out against cabinet, right?
He probably does more for the party as the public relations officer than many members of the party itself. Believe you me, if you're a member of the media, you know what I'm talking about. But the public in a whole know that you will get 20 notifications a day from this man.
More.
And I kid you not, it's sometimes 11 o'clock in the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. What is going on?
And he has never, as far as I'm aware, he has never told me no to an interview.
He's never stepped away from an interview.
And he's never tried to hide away from hard questions.
But I also find it quite amazing. And I saw a brief bit of the interview, the conversation I had with him yesterday, and I was like, talk about taking public relations to the next extent. This man had one blue wall and one yellow wall. I was like, wow.
The man is technically good at his job. You might not like the content of what he says, but communicators at least should respect what he does as compared to, now maybe you might want to say he's not good. He's not a good communicator. He's not good at public relations. You don't like him and how he operates. But at the end of the day, he's better than a lot of what we see. Now, I guess let's try and somehow go back to the initial point of the whole thing, right? Because there were a couple of things you said earlier with regards to Rodney Charles' statements asking the Prime Minister to step down and so on and so on. I do have a question though, politically speaking. It seems as though Kamala wants at least a second term before she will retire, right? Because she lost 2 elections and she's stubbornly holding on, right? Dr. Keith Rowley seems to be a bit more content. You know, he was able to prove his naysayers wrong. He became Prime Minister, and then he won 2 terms, right? And he's reaching an age now where to hold on to the position in his late 70s is kind of rough, right? It is a lot of work at the end of the day, especially when you have a cabinet that doesn't seem to do much. Would it be better for Kamala if Rowley does step down? You think the UNC you think Kamala is saying, if he goes, I have a better chance? Or could it be worse? Because that is the target of a good chunk of your criticism right there that you focus on. And once that target goes, while we have questions about the people underneath him, they don't have quite the same level of criticisms and baggage.
Who is the individual that is going to take over from Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley? We could every time we have this discussion off air or on air, there's what, 7 names? You the viewer.
Well, that boils down to basically 2 or 3, really.
You the viewer. Who is the best individual to take over from Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley should he leave? And also, who is the best individual to take over from Kamala Persad-Bissessar if she were to leave? Now, bear in mind, given public perception, Kamala Persad-Bissessar remaining in that position only helps the People's National Movement. You have to bear that in mind as well. At one point,
okay, let's look at North America. Let's look at American politics just for a second. I believe it's not that Trump's popular. It's that the Democratic Party is slowly but surely making themselves unpopular. And they want to vote them out. They don't necessarily want to vote Trump in. A lot of people who eventually became Trump supporters, right? They didn't start off that way. Now, with regards to the PNM and the UNC, I don't think it's a case where I do think it could be a case where at some point the desire to vote the incumbent out, if we have all these complaints about how things are going, will override our criticisms of the alternative. Because it won't be about voting in Kamala. It will be voting in anything else except what's there.
Really? So then if you take a look at the last election, when the current administration or the previous administration closed down Petroshan and it left thousands on the job line, when people in Transbago are finding it very difficult to even now pay for textbooks to send their children to school, there's an argument to that where people also get their priorities wrong, where the People's National Movement have made very difficult decisions in having to increase prices in certain areas. And bear in mind, we have our criticisms because there's no creation of wealth or avenues for generating wealth elsewhere where prices are increasing, though they need to increase. Right? When you have all this happening and people are frustrated and you see society being more angry and people are struggling, yet that party still gets back into power, what does that say? I go back to between 2010 and 2015. Dr. Keith Rowley and the PNM administration between 2010 and 2015 were excellent in opposition. They were very good in opposition. And that's the thing. Not good in government, good in opposition. Now, when I say not good in government, I'm not saying all around. In some areas, you give them credit. COVID, the handling of the pandemic, there are a lot of criticisms there. But more or less, what we see here in TNT, what took place, all right, fair enough. But my last statement for this entire segment is, I don't think any political party, at least the United National Congress or the People's National Movement, really want to win the next election. I don't think any one of them want to win the next election. They're going to campaign, they're going to fight, they're going to try and get into office. But whoever wins the next general election, good luck to them.
Because they're basically facing what the NAR face?
Good luck to them. They are facing perhaps the most turbulent time in the history of an independent TNT.
Since before the NAR.
1962, they are facing a most turbulent time. So I don't think they want to win election. Good luck to them.
Here's the thing though, the last election, we had to understand two things. One, a lot of the issues, the economic issues, were long-term consequences. And that was the PNM's first term, right? So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, we're not going to necessarily fault you for long-term issues. Of course now, when you get to year 7, year 8, year 9, now you're there for almost a decade. The arguments of, well, we met this coming in, doesn't quite hold water. However, there's also the caveat of COVID. And COVID was the major issue. And I don't think the opposition did themselves any favors with regards to presenting themselves as a viable alternative to handle the pandemic better. And I think that actually trumped the economy in that election period. But it seems, because things like grants and giveaways and freeness and all of that, and tax breaks and subsidies and all of that is always very popular with the public, right? The economy now is probably going to be the major factor. And to the point where I said that crime is going to take it's not going to be a close second, it's going to be a distant second.
Crime and the economy.
I'll be surprised if crime is put on that level.
Crime and the economy are always the two major factors.
I'll be surprised.
Always the two.
Because crime was a factor in this local government election, and the status quo didn't change. And to me, that made me wonder, because people were talking about crime. It's not the politicians, it's not the UNC, the PNM. PNM didn't want to talk about crime at all. UNC was happy to talk about crime during the local government elections, but it seemed as though the people were bringing it up, right? And it didn't seem to really impact the local government elections as much as voters brought it up as an issue when politicians met with them.
Anyways, and gentlemen, we're going to take a break here, and when we return, we're going to open up the phone lines, and you have the opportunity to tell Sean and I whether or not we actually spoke nonsense this morning. We'll be right back after this.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
the sacred hallowed halls of the St. Joseph's Convent Chapel this December 9th and 10th. Join us for an evening of enchanting melodies and timeless tradition at Carols at the Convent under the direction of John Thomas and Cecilia Salazar. Be captivated by the awe-inspiring performances of the award-winning St. Joseph's Convent Choir, Port of Spain, alongside their esteemed special guests. Tickets are $200 and are available at select outlets: St. Joseph's Convent Office, the Abercrombie Tea Shop, the Living Water Bookshop, and Kitchen Corner along Circular Mall, or call 625-4502 for more information. Don't miss this musical masterpiece where every note resonates with the spirit of the season. Carols at the Convent. Get your tickets today.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Join us for the live broadcast on Saturday, December 9th, as we kick off the much anticipated HOPE launch event, the ultimate celebration of transparent governance. Get ready to immerse yourself in the unveiling of our visionary roadmap for this great nation. Tune in from 2 p.m. to hear from the dedicated members of HOPE, spearheaded by the dynamic Timothy Hamill-Smith, as they share their commitment to serving the people and the country right here on WESN, Content Capital. Saturday, December 9th, 2023, this live broadcast and event starts at 2 p.m. and is coming to viewers from Paria Suites Conference Center, La Romaine. Join us in embracing the core values of hope, honesty, opportunity, performance, empowerment. Be a part of the movement for a brighter and more transparent future.
The preceding was a paid political announcement.
Welcome back to Talk About, ladies and gentlemen. Now is the time we open the phone lines. Last chance for the week to have your say. Of course, the situation in Guyana continues, and we've covered that at length on this show for the week because it's just been getting crazier and crazier, in my opinion. But we also have local news that's happening. Of course, crime continues unabated. The murder rate waits on no one. Call in and have your say. As I know that things are supposed to be at a happy holiday festive period, though we can't escape from reality. Our first caller of the day from St. Anne's. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call, sir.
Good morning.
And Keaton, welcome back.
Thank you.
I have a question. Now that HOPE has launched, now that the country could look forward to HOPE, I wondered if it's in the interest of Talking Point or WESN to continue to have your typical Wednesday guest on, given that she's now part of that political organization. And if, given the fact that she has summarily now become a part of that organization, her views can be seen as tainted or slanted one way or the other. I appreciate what she contributes to the program. I enjoy listening to her, ex-PNM, now member of HOPE. But given that reality, I wondered if you would reconsider how you place her on your program, or on your station for that matter. That's my inquiry.
Thank you very much, caller, for your question. It's an excellent question. It's a very good question, and it's something that Sean and I have discussed off air, and we are discussing it still at length. We are studying it for the very same reason that you've raised. Now, there are factors to consider. When Karen was a member of the People's National Movement and running for political leader, she was still on this platform making her contributions.
Yep.
There is also the fact that almost every Thursday, a member of the United National Congress is present on Talking Point to make contributions. We have government ministers, when government ministers make themselves available. Bear that in mind. We have tried tirelessly to get a permanent representative of the People's National Movement to be on Talking Point at least one day a week.
Who is authorized to speak on behalf of the
Precisely.
government in a general and total sense?
We have tried in that regard. So I want you to bear in mind these factors as we are actually thinking at length and discussing it at length, the next moves. Because you're right. It could come, bear in mind also, we had the Deputy Chief Secretary, Dr. Faith B. Israel, when the PDP were running for election 2 years ago. We had her on the station almost every Friday. So I get the point that you're making, and it's a very difficult decision to underscore, given all the factors that we have just related to you. However, I will say that it has not stopped us at all. It has not.
It's important to note that Karen is not necessarily looking to be the representative of Hope on Talking Point, which is why, as much as they've already had some amount of interaction with the press and with the public, we have not had that discussion with Karen on Talking Point. It's been kept to national issues. And at the end of the day, it's not as though she's trying to hide the association. So those who want to view her perspectives or her opinions through the lens of the fact that she's now a member of Hope, that's fine. It's more or less declared to the public, but generally speaking, that won't be the focus. It's not going to be Hope's official perspective when she speaks. It's going to be Karen Nunez's perspective, generally speaking. And yes, it's not always going to be quite so distinct or so easy to make that distinction. But
after all is said and done, to answer your question, we haven't made a decision as yet. All right?
I mean, I am leaning towards, because part of it is you don't know how it will work out. There are times when things like this, complicated things like this work out and they don't. And you kind of have to, give it a little bit of a chance to see what happens. Of course, the mistake would be if you give it too much of a chance or not enough of a chance. So I'm hoping that she could remain. No pun intended.
All right, you can go ahead and join the conversation, ladies and gentlemen. You can share your thoughts and opinions with us on the topics that we've discussed. Or if there's anything else that you'd like to contribute to, well, we're always open to that.
And I'd just like to point out that, and this past Monday was an example. Just because of her association with the show does not mean that we're going to now all of a sudden want to butter up with Hope and be nice to them and not criticize them. No, if there's anything that we see that is worth criticism, we'll say the criticism at the end of the day.
Yeah, but you don't have to say that. That's the point. It's a given. Because no matter what the relationship is, you cannot be a paliwal to anyone. It just compromises your job and your position. And quite frankly, we don't have to say it.
Yeah, but you see, some of our viewers don't understand that. That's why we could criticize the PNM for 3 days of the week, and on the fourth day when we criticize the UNC, which is the day they just happen to tune in or pay attention, all of a sudden we government stooges and we PNM shills. Don't mind that we might have criticized the PNM 3 days in a row, but that one time, and we've seen that before, within the same week, right? We've seen that before where just because we don't do equal criticisms on the same show, people make the assumption in that day we're biased for one side or the other.
Again, it's not criticizing for criticizing's sake. It's constructive criticism, and it's a matter of thoughts and opinions. It's healthy conversation and debate. And with that being said, if people would look at you and say you're pro-UNC and the next they say you're pro-PNM, or one day you're anti-UNC and one day you're anti-PNM.
It basically happened. I think in 1 week. In 1 week it has happened.
You're doing a good job.
It's a while ago, but it has happened.
Really
we got criticisms from callers on different days that were biased for different parties. We have a caller from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean.
Morning, Mr. Fisher.
Good morning.
Good to see Sean.
Keaton.
I'm Keaton, sorry. Good to see your program. Just on the fisheries, they have a new bill passing over 100 years old with upgrading the new bill on the fisheries division. The draft fisheries management bill, the new bill they passed. But it go pass. Has some good laws in it, has some not so for the fishermen. But we have a problem in the Claxton Fishing Board. We are divided with the boundaries with Couva and Point of View. When we go to now, you have to have your documents now with the selenium stuff. Like to be in the fishing port, you just in your documents, document. When you go to the settlement station and get signed, the sergeant tells you you can't sign it. I'll try to get through program here, what they want, but I didn't get through the one post for one of them. But that's the problem we have. You have to have your documents signed, but to get through, to get the documents for the fisheries.
And he's supposed
to
sign it?
But when you go to the station, they tell you that they can't sign it. You have to go. When you go, it's the same problem you get it.
Do they state why they're not signing it?
They don't want to sign it. I don't know why. Okay. So the police or sergeant or a higher authority is supposed to sign it.
Okay, so what we'll do is that we'll pass on this message to the media master of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Yeah, I'm calling next week when he come and, you know.
Yeah, and then hopefully he can give you some
because
answers.
you have to have these documents, or you need to register your boat, to go out in the sea to apply your trade. You have to have all the because you find with all that, when they pass this bill and you find it when charged, it's very, very high. It's a big fine.
And they want you to register Port of Spain.
Yeah, you have to register. You have to, you know.
Okay.
They put it now like a fish worker. Even if you're painting a boat, when you have to have the documents when you're in the port.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
Caller, thank you very much for notifying us of that. We will actually let the media master know your concerns, and hopefully we can get a response to share with you next week on the program. We have a caller on the line with us from Chabonis. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Professor.
I must say I agree with your first caller that you should get Karen on the station. Not so much for her personal view, but for Hope view. Because I have pointed out very clearly what has been going wrong for the last 20 years. No matter of law and order, enforcing all your laws, making sure you review them on the advice of independent public servants, and so forth and so forth. I have gone up on their website, and I find it very confusing, and I saw nothing like that in the time I spent there. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, caller, but thank you. Not for me, but I don't know.
You want Karen to still appear on the station so that she could answer questions with regards to Hope, because the website is not really that clear on information.
Yeah, but how they intend to reverse the trend going on in the country? Okay?
Yes,
okay,
caller.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your clarification. I actually agree with you on the aspect of the website, because I went on the website as well. And even in the course of interviewing the political leader, Timothy Hammersmith, last week, as well as the General Secretary of the party, yeah, the website, well done in terms of the look, but it needs a bit more information and a bit more resources. Now, the only thing to bear in mind is this is a party that is going to officially launch tomorrow, though they have been in existence for some time. Maybe the website will be more resourced in time to come. But I hear you loud and clear. Again, phone lines are open. You can join us on the program and share your thoughts and opinions with us. Hey, listen, if you have some good news, you know, I always ask for some good news. If you have some good news or you'd like to spread some Christmas merriment and share with us this morning, why not do so now?
Keaton, I have some old good news.
Old good news?
Yeah, old good news.
Okay, what's that?
The crime detection rate went from 15% to 18%.
Oh, you mean they're not taking any more reports in the police station?
I'm just saying we're 3% better with detecting crimes. 3 whole percent, Keaton.
Oh wait, we're 3% better. Oh, I thought you. Oh, sorry. I
So
when
when you go to the murder rate, we might actually arrest 15 to 18 more murderers.
Well,
yeah?
I mean, okay. Arguably, that's an improvement, right? If you're arguably, that's an improvement. That's what, a 20% improvement. If you're arresting 18 more instead of 15. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen.
No. It's going from 15% of 500 or 600 to 18% of 500 or 600. So instead of like 60 something or 70 something, we're getting like 80 something or 90 something.
As I was saying,
I'm just saying. I have said, just be ready at the end of the year when crime statistics come out to get a lot of good news about crime, a lot of good news of how we reduce the murder rate from over 600 to under 600. Just wait. I've said that yesterday. So that's some good news we to look forward to. That's some past good news and some future good news.
So if you'd like to share some good news with us and spread some Christmas merriment, and share the time to do so is now. If you have any questions to share with us. Anyway, Sean, it's actually that time of the year where last year we did a similar thing where we started reflecting on the year gone by and what we would hope to see different, or what we
No pun intended.
No pun intended. It's going to be very confusing now. But again,
hope is a four-letter word. Just saying.
Not just an acronym. but we were doing some reflection of 2023 and heading into 2024. Does that even make any sense at all? Does reflection change anything? Are we, oftentimes I see people who say we do a good job on talking point. It's been said that many a times.
Yeah.
Are we getting anywhere?
I mean, even Mr. San Fernando called in and because I was getting a bit, I don't know if despondent is the word, and he noticed it and he couldn't help but agree with it. And the fact that, look, where are we going, right? Are things being done? You know, we have people complaining and whinging, but we don't necessarily have any actual effort being done to fix anything. And it's almost as though our problems are so widespread. They're not all insurmountably difficult obstacles and mountains that would take an arm and a leg and sacrifice to deal with. Some of them will take sacrifice to deal with, right? That's to tell you how bad they are. Not all of them are. But the scope of what we're talking about, it's almost as though the population, and to be fair, individual citizens, that's not their job, but they can't get a handle on it. And because of that, they don't even know where to start, what to ask for, what to demand. Like, I'm starting to wonder if that's the case. Meanwhile, we're electing people who either, A, don't know how to deal with all of the issues that we have and how to prioritize which one to start with first, etc., or B, have some sort of incentive not to.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. You focus on politicians. What are the people are trying to be? The citizens of TNT, the average man on these streets.
I mean, I am the person that says that part of the responsibility is ours. We vote the politicians in.
No, but
we communicate our desires to them.
All right, I hear you, but it's not even a matter just politics and politicians and voting anymore. It's not just a matter of that. There's a man on the streets who is complaining, who is frustrated. Do they actually make an effort for themselves? Do they actually... Okay, are we...
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay,
yeah.
As citizens of TNT, are we being their neighbor's keeper? Are we looking out for one another? Because I find everybody just fighting and arguing all the time. I think there's very little sense of camaraderie which exists anymore, and people don't get along, whether it be for selfish, ignorant reasons, or whatever the case may be. But even if our politicians are doing nonsense, and even if the politics is frustrating, we're not even helping ourselves. I mean, we're letting each other down, we're letting our children down, and it's arguably, if the politicians are seeing that and they're saying, well, look, these people don't care, we can do whatever we want to do.
So here's the question, right? And I have some stuff to follow up with, but I'll give you the basic question first. Are we seeing moral decay of our society? Because one of the things that has been brought up is the widespread use of marijuana and what that might be doing to our young people and to our society. Then there's also what came up with the opposition, the Trinidad's interestingly high ranking with regards to consumption of pornography and what that might be doing with regards to our moral values. Now, with that said, ASP Arun, I do believe he pointed out to the fact, I don't know if it was on air, that listen, things like child sexual abuse has been there. It's just that we're hearing about it more now in the current environment, particularly because, but not limited just to social media and what that does to expose information to the public. So it might not be that we have a moral decay, it might just be that we're more aware of our pitfalls. But at the same time, I think there's something to be said about how violent crime is increasing and what you pointed out too. Are we our brother's keeper? Where's the village that raises a child? It's no longer a village that raises a child.
I think we're in moral decay. It's not happening now. It's been happening for a while, and you're seeing the effects of it. Good morning, caller from St. Anne's. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Returning a call from St. Anne's yet again.
Hi, caller.
I just want to tap into something, what you're talking about. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, great. It just reminded me of something that Stuart Young said on that BBC World Questions show we had a few months ago in Trinidad, where he effectively said that we would mine every bit of oil, every bit of gas
yes,
that we could from the economy until the last drop, or last cubic foot could be had. And because we are basically a carbon-based economy. And it made me think, oh, that's what's going to happen then. And we're going to end up like Haiti, where they're burning the forest for fuel because at some point the oil and gas is going to run out. And I think Trinidadians, and I just said Tobagonians, we, because of our history, going back to the plantation, we live on a day-to-day basis in this country. We do not that we don't have the capacity to think ahead, we're just so caught up in living day to day, trying to get by, trying to get through, trying to get over, trying to get under, trying to get to the next day. We don't have the we think of it as a luxury. We don't have the luxury of thinking that far in advance because we're so busy trying to keep up with what's happening around us. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we could always look forward to a holiday, we could always look forward to Carnival, we could always look forward to Christmas, we could always look forward to the next event that keeps us just off of what should truly be capturing our attention. It's one of the reasons why we don't have a situation in this country on a regular basis where we have revolutions or overthrows. In other parts of the world, the kind of money that has gone through this economy, which has been lost and spent badly and invested wrongly, the billions of dollars that we have lost, and it has been admitted to by consecutive governments. Let's not kid ourselves. In other parts of the world, there'll be heads on spikes. Parliaments will be burned to the ground. Some of those parliamentarians will be without shirts and vests and clothes trying to escape the mob. But in Trinidad, we think, well, it's their money. Americans think, that's my money. We fought a war of independence to get that money. We went on bended knee to the Queen in England to get our independence. And one of the deals we had to make was to ensure that we kept the laws that we had. So our imaginings of our independence and our republicanism status is completely separate from, say, the Americans or the French or the English. And I think it plays into what some may call our laziness to accept our own responsibility in the mess that we are in. We'll blame the politicians. We'll never say the voters are to blame because they voted them in. The voters will say, well, what choice do I have? And it goes round and round and round. And I don't know, guys. We all hope for the best, and then we deal with the reality of what and where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do have a good day. We lost, I think, a caller from Petit Valley and a caller from Diego Martin. We have time, call back in, we'll take your calls, and then we'll wrap up the program. However, caller from St. Anne's, once I hear the frustrations in your voice, you can hear the frustrations. What an excellent point you've made. Quite an excellent. I was there, by the way, at the BBC World Questions program. I was there at Central Bank Auditorium. And, Sean, I'll be very honest with you. Everyone was calm except Stuart Young.
that actually is slightly surprising and very funny.
No, because the reason being is that the audience asked some tough questions. And there were also some, the rebuttal by audience members when he would respond. He was getting frustrated. He was cracking. You saw and you realized the point that St. Anne's is making. There is no bloody plan for the future. There is none. There is just short-term thinking and how my political career could survive for tomorrow.
So here's, right.
But guess what? With all that being said and done, he's absolutely right. Do Trinidadians or do Trinbagonians care about Trinidad and Tobago? Do they?
Well, here's the thing. I have been started to say, listen, I don't think it's about incompetence anymore or bad faith and bad intentions. I think it's weakness. Because to solve some of our problems, to do the right thing, you have to be strong. You have to be strong to tell your peers, hey, I don't agree with that. You have to be strong to stand up to corruption, whether it's within politics, whether it's in the police service, whether it's in the business community, government service, etc., etc. And I don't think we have that. And part of why you need to be strong is you need to tell people, I don't care what your pet project is for you to funnel funds to your financier. We need to use funds responsibly. But we can't seem to do that. Everybody has their own interests. And of course, it's not going to outright look like corruption or anything like that. But everybody has their own pet projects, their own interests, in part because of the short-term thinking. I need Project X so that I can ensure I get re-elected. Well, at the end of the day, it's not as though your name and face is that valuable. It's the Balizé or the rising sun on the ticket that people vote, right? Let's be real. Only the political leader, in my opinion, identity matters. But government, to me, they just don't want to face the reality and make the hard decisions. They're forced to do things like reduce the fuel subsidy. They're forced to do things like wind up Petrotrin. And one could now make the argument in hindsight they did a poor job of that. But to say that they're actually doing it from a position of moral strength and character, I don't know what I want. That's a hard sell for me. I'll have a hard time believing that. They're too weak. They're doing it because they're forced to, and they don't have the strength to figure out a way to proactively improve the situation. So when the dominoes fall and we get stuck in a mess and they have to clean it up, they're forced to clean it up, then they'll act. That's why it takes so long with WASN.
That's why I don't think anybody wants to win the next election.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
I really don't think they want to. But anyway, that's it for Talking Point. Thank you very much for joining Sean and I on the program this morning. It has been a pleasure, and it was nice to be here, and it was nice to hear from some of our callers. And I look forward to the next conversation.
Yes, hopefully it won't. We got 2 this week. This is incredible. This is a new record.
No, I think 2 weeks ago I was on for 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, Janelle John Bates 1 day. I think I was on a Monday.
Folks, at some point, it's hard to remember the individual shows once they're done because you just have to think about the next one.
Yeah. It's been 2 days this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, questions that you will ask yourself is that examining Trinidad and Tobago and complaining about society, one has to look at yourself in the mirror and ask whether or not I am doing my part or I'm making the best contribution that I can as a citizen. So yes, politicians have faced flack a number of times on this program and on many other programs, and political parties, obviously, as well. But when you look at all that you are doing, could you really cast stones? Are you really putting your best foot forward? Because it's so easy to say, we will rise and we shall prevail. But at the end of the day, today is a good day to have a good day. Sure, Michael Small?
I mean, we are equal opportunity critics, folks. But with that said, make today a good day, as my co-host always says.
And have a content capital Christmas.
And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
My name is Carl Media. I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Join us for the live broadcast on Saturday, December 9th, as we kick off the much-anticipated HOPE launch event, the ultimate celebration of transparent governance. Get ready to immerse yourself in the unveiling of our visionary roadmap for this great nation. Tune in from 2 p.m. to hear from the dedicated members of HOPE, spearheaded